You hear it all the time from copers. My teammates never listen even though I'm making the right calls. There's a difference between not listening and disagreeing. If you find yourself saying that line often, of my teammates never listen, you aren't nearly as good as you think you are. Obviously, there are certain situations where it can be frustrating, but you need to remain objective about what's actually happening. Focus on the information that you had available to you and consider how much time you had to adapt to their lack of response or careful pings. The reason people end up in this mentality is because they can't see the outcome if their ally had followed because it never happened. Imagine if you could replay the situation, they do follow and it doesn't work, what are you going to say then? But obviously, since there's no way to test it after the fact, a lot of people aren't going to be skeptical or doubt themselves on the decision. They're going to double down and saying they were correct. This often also stems from them being unable to see the game from anyone but their own perspective. If they've only ever played top lane, only ever played jungle, only ever played support, whatever role it may be, they're going to see the game through their lens, and anything else goes against what they want. Junglers often do this by ignoring laners' wave states. They'll go for a gank that in theory may be nice for the jungler because they get 300 gold, but the laner has to lose a whole ton of minions under the turret in order to follow up. Or they may have to delay their recall, which they really needed to do, and it can make their lane harder in the future. Laners do this by begging for ganks while the jungler should be prioritizing tempo. Perhaps in that scenario, if they had allowed the jungler to finish their camps and then gank, it would have been more beneficial than forcing the jungler to skip camps for a gank that was kind of iffy anyway. To clarify, I'm not saying that you should never ask a jungler to gank if you think there is a really good setup, especially if it's a dive, but you have to consider both players' perspectives. Players are more likely to follow a play if it's made well ahead of time and by a positive member of the team. If you've been playing very poorly, or especially if you've been spam pinging your teammates, they're a lot less likely to follow your call. Not everyone uses chat, so they may not see your messages, and if you're toxic enough, they've probably muted your pings too. And no, them muting your pings isn't them being soft, that's you being unable to control yourself emotionally. It goes both ways. You shouldn't be blindly following everyone else's calls. You have to make your own decisions. You should be taking in as much information as you can so that you can come to that proper educated decision on what the correct call is. If there's anything that you take away from this video, it's see it from your ally's perspective. And if you still can't see it from your ally's perspective, get somebody else's perspective that wasn't playing the game. Whether it be a friend or a coach like myself, somebody can give you some help. Speaking of, if you're interested in getting free coaching from me in either top lane or jungle, the link to my Discord is in the description.